What's up, you guys? You already know it's your girl Cleopatra. I am up and out in this 92-degree weather, getting ready to do a college tour for Daquan. Today, he wants to tour Georgia Tech. So here we are. Let's go. So right now we're just walking around, just taking a pit stop because it's very hot out today. And we're enjoying this nice college, just walking around before we do our introduction tour, before the full walk tour. And here you will see we have Slutty Vegan. Georgia Tech does have a Slutty Vegan, so they do have options for vegans and vegetarians here. Again, there's a Slutty Vegan sign. Again, we're just wasting some time right now before we get started. Those are the stairs we had to walk down to get there. So there is a lot of food options here for the kids and for the guests when you come. So right now, like I said, we're just walking. It's really hot. It's 92 degrees. And what do I see? My favorite spot, Chick-fil-A. So of course, I want some. And as I'm walking, you can also see what is right next to Chick-fil-A. Panda Express. So let me tell you something. You come here, you're most likely better not be hungry because you're going to spend some money. That's how they going to get these kids.
And see if you can figure out what we call it. Close. The flag building.
I was going to say United Nations.
The Smith All Student Services building has all sorts of resources for students inside. Our LGBTQIA resource center is inside. Our women's resource center is inside. The dean of students, the resident housing association is inside. So it's a great resource if you have any sorts of questions. This would be a good first place to look. So you're probably wondering, why are there so many flags hanging from the ceiling? But we actually have a flag for every student that has a country here at Georgia Tech. Right now it's about 129 flags, I think. It does fluctuate every year with graduation. But yeah, I think it's a really great way to honor all of the countries that have students here at Georgia Tech. If that student is the last student from their country and they graduate, we take down the flag. But if another student comes from that country, we put it back up. Okay, and then this building to my left is our first Center for the Arts. It is our fine arts hub on campus. So many different programs run out of here. There is Drama Tech, which is the theater program here at Georgia Tech. They put out plays and theaters every single year. We also have a men's and women's a cappella group that do performances inside. Our dance team will use the stage inside and do performances as well. It's just a really great space. You can reserve it for your club if your club wants to do some sort of performance, but it's a really great space for that. And then right behind you, this is our student center, just from another angle. There's lots of different entrances, but it's technically four-ish floors, and it's a really great space. Any questions about resources for students, First Center, anything like that?
Just walking around Georgia Tech on the tour. Daquan and Camille. We have a lot of cafes here. This is called Rising Roll. Here's one of the pavilions. Guys, is that not up? Daquan. Oh, I'm going to the wrong group. I'm going to the wrong group. Wrong group. Yeah, she puts our girl has the stuff in her hair.
No, I remember because they have the sticker on their.
Oh yeah.
Just opened up. We actually built the exhibition hall right before the student center, so that all of our resources and things that were in the student center had a home. So this is also very new. Right now it has a lot of large open spaces that students can rent to use can reserve for their clubs. If they have a large club that needs a meeting space. I know my sorority's National Philanthropy works with another club here on campus called Georgia Tech Miracle, and we do our dance marathon inside every single year. It's really, really awesome. But aside from that, I do want to take a second to talk about the dining options here at Georgia Tech. If you are a student who chooses to live on campus during their first year, you will be required to have a meal plan. And with that, we do have two different kinds of meal plans. We have the weekday unlimited and the everyday unlimited. So the weekday unlimited, as you might imagine, is Monday through Friday, and you get unlimited meal swipes at our 3 dining halls here on campus. The everyday unlimited, all 7 days of the week, you get unlimited meal swipes at the 3 dining halls. And then with that, you would receive dining dollars. Now, dining dollars, they are not typically used at the dining halls because it gives you a little bit more freedom. You can use your dining dollars at the Chick-fil-A, the Panda Express. There's a lovely cafe that we just passed. It's called the Rising Roll, really great smoothies. You can use your dining dollars there and a lot of other places here on campus. So it gives you a little bit of freedom there, so you don't necessarily have to eat at the dining hall a day if you didn't want to. That being said, we do have 3 dining halls. 2 are on East Campus, 1 is on West Campus. As we walk this way, we're headed towards West Campus. We're going to make a little bit of a circle today, but there's a lot of different accommodations for dietary restrictions like vegetarian, dairy-free, gluten-free, you name it, we have the accommodation for it. We want to make sure that our students are being fed and that they're enjoying what they're eating. Georgia Tech is really special is that all of our dining is actually in-house. So it is all Georgia Tech employees who are making the food and serving it in the dining space, which is really awesome. Aside from that, I wanted to mention our buzz cards. So your buzz card is going to be where those dining dollars are found. It's almost like a credit card, but it's your student ID and you can swipe it and all of those dining dollars are tax-free, which is awesome. And they're reloadable, so you can go online and go into the meal portal. I'm not exactly sure what they call it these days, but you go in and you can add more, you can load more funds onto the card and it's completely tax-free. So that is a really, really good thing about that. Yeah, that's a little bit about the dining. I personally enjoy Georgia Tech dining a lot. I really loved the meal plan my freshman year. But if you are in Greek life has a little bit of a different meal plan because a lot of our sorority and fraternity houses here on campus do have their own meal plans. So you can get refunded through the school and you would join the Greek 100 meal plan, which is 100 meal swipes, I think 250 buzz funds, which is a little bit different from from a dining dollar, and then I think you get 100 dining dollars. So that's just a fun little thing about Greek life here on campus. But the buzz fund, which I didn't mention previously, is a little bit more wide range in what you can use it for. You can also load those onto your buzz card. But the buzz fund you can use at all of the dining establishments, but you can also use it at the bookstore in Tech Square, or you can use it at the CRC, or our Campus Recreation Center, which we'll see a little bit later. They have a bunch of fitness classes. You can use your buzz funds to pay for the fitness classes, things like that. So it's a little bit wider range in what you can use it for.
Here is the Industrial and Systems Engineering Building. Hold on, y'all.
There's a lot of greenish going on here. We're now heading towards the west building, I think she said. Oh.
Building with lots and lots of windows is our Stamps and Health Center. It's the #1 place that students would go to if they ever needed any sort of non-emergent medical. It's a great, great, great place. The doctors and nurses are so kind. The one time that I've had to go to the Stamp Center, I was able to do an online appointment and get eye drops super quickly and just come and pick them up right here at the CRC, or at the Stamps, which is really awesome because they have their own pharmacy inside. So if you're from out of state or if you have, even if you live close, students will transfer their prescriptions over to the Stamps pharmacy and be able to pick it up right here on campus. It's super, super easy. My best friend lives 15 minutes away and she still transferred her medication to the Stamps pharmacy because it's just a lot easier than going home. That being said, they do take up to 80 different insurances, and if your insurance is not accepted by Stamps, they have their own student insurance that is run through the university that's like $15 to $25 a month, which is a really awesome thing. There's also a lot of different resources within the Stamps Health Center. There's a women's clinic, there is psychiatric aid if that's something you're looking for. They also have like general practitioner, that sort of thing. Really, really great place. My favorite thing though is that they do have a parking lot on the side, so if you're ever feeling like very, very under the weather and you don't know if you can walk or take a bus, you can drive your car. You can drive your car and park right next to it, which was very nice when I was not feeling well. Now this big building, you might be wondering, is our campus recreation center. It is 5 stories and it's got all kinds of different equipment in it. There are free weights, weightlifting machines, there's an indoor track, lots of cardio equipment, a 4-story climbing wall, all inside, and it doesn't just have an Olympic-sized swimming pool, it has the 1996 Olympic swimming pool from the Atlanta Olympics. Georgia Tech loved the pool and we said, hey, can we buy it from you? And so we did, and we built our campus recreation center right around it. There's indoor basketball courts, racquetball courts, volleyball courts, indoor track. It has everything, and that is completely free for students to use because it comes with your student fees. There are a few optional things that you can pay for. There are personal trainer. You can get a personal trainer through the Campus Recreation Center. That's for an extra fee. And then they also have some different fitness classes for a small extra fee, usually around $10 to $15. So a lot more cost effective than other exercise classes here in the Atlanta area. But it is a really, really great it's a really, really great space. Sorry, I didn't want to have to yell at it aside from that, if you look a little bit further that way, we'll get to see a better look at it later, but we have our Stamps Recreation Fields. It is large enough to hold 6 intramural games all at one time. Our marching band practices out there every Monday through Friday during the fall semester, and it is really great. It has a big track around the outside. Students love it. Here at Georgia Tech, we are a D1 school, so we do have this D1 athletics, but right under that, we have a lot of other options for students to stay active and maybe continue sports that they played in high school or try something new. We have our club level sports, which is a little bit less of a time commitment than D1 athletics, as you might imagine. Usually students would try out for that team. There might be some fees associated with it. I believe most of the club teams do travel to other schools like Clemson, other schools that are in the Southeast. They're pretty close. I know the lacrosse team, boys and girls, or men's and women's, do both travel. The swim team, I think, travels, and swim club. Soccer club, women's soccer travels, so it's really fun, great way to stay active. And then beneath that, we do have our intramural sports. Way lower time commitment. It's usually just a couple of friends. You can form a team with anyone that you know and join the league. I I know a famous, or not a famous, but a very popular one among my friends is the basketball intramurals. You can just get a group of 5 together that live on your dorm or even your apartment mates and have a team. It's really fun, very low time commitment. Usually the games are in the evening, games and practices in the evening, so that students have enough time during the day to get their work done and not have to worry about stressing anything like that before they have to go to the game in the afternoon.
And this the recreational center, y'all.
Teams, intramurals, the CRC, stamps, any questions about any of that? Our fields. If y'all know who Jack Harlow is, he actually has come to the Stamps field and hung out before. He played spike ball with a couple of my friends because he's in the Atlanta area, or was then. I don't know where he is now. But I'm going to take a second to talk about housing here at Georgia Tech. So as I mentioned earlier, if you're a student who lives on campus, you do have that meal plan. And so as a student living on campus, you will be in a traditional dorm style for the most. Or like most often you'll be in a traditional dorm style, which is the 2 students in 1 room with a communal bathroom and a communal lounge and kitchen. The communal bathrooms are cleaned once a day, every day, and not by you, so a lot of students do enjoy that, so they don't have to clean their own bathroom. And that's the traditional dorm style. Most of our dorms are in that style. Normally it is 2 students to a room, but we do have one building on East Campus that is a quad, so 4 students. It's usually 2 students in 1 room and 2 students in 1 room, but there's like a half wall. It's not a full wall, but it's a half wall that separates the 2, so that's a quad. You can live in a double or a quad. If you do choose to fill out the application and are accepted into our honors program, the honors program students do get to live in apartment style living. And that's usually your student gets your own bedroom, and then you would share a bathroom with 1 other student, and then there would typically be 4 people in the apartment total, and you have your own private living area for the 4 of you, and kitchen and that sort of thing. If you're not in the honors program but you're still looking for something a little different, we do have 2 buildings on West Campus that are suite style living. So it's 2 students in 1 room, 2 students in another room, and you're connected in the middle and you have a private bathroom. That's in our Woodruff buildings on West Campus. So you can see some of if you look right through the trees, there are those brick buildings, and those are some of our first year residence halls. About 1/3 of our students choose to live on West Campus and 2/3 live on East Campus. It's really just up to preference. On West Campus we do have our dining hall, West Village, and on East Campus we have the North Avenue Dining Hall and the Britton Dining Hall. Over here on West Campus it's a little bit quieter, not as close to like city life, lots more green space, which I know a lot of students love and prefer to live near green spaces. And then on East Campus it's a lot closer to all of our athletics. The sororities and fraternities are on East Campus, and it's a little bit more of like a city feel on East Campus. As a first year, you might be interested in joining a living learning community, which is a first year program. We have 6 or 7 different living learning communities that students can be involved in. And it's just an extra like 1 credit hour class and a project that they get to do with their peers. And then if you're in a living learning community, you would be in a specific dorm. I believe most of them are on West Campus, and then 1 is on East Campus. Our honors program is one of those living learning communities that you could be a part of. Other ones are Ignite, which is our summer freshman program. We have 388 summer freshmen here on campus right now, and it's a great way to get, I believe, 6 credits out of the way before the fall semester even starts. I know a lot of people enjoy that program and do choose to get involved in it. And another is our global challenges, and there's a couple more, just to give you a little sneak peek of what that might be. There's a lot more information online if you are interested in joining a living learning community. You might be wondering, what's the laundry situation? So it kind of depends on what building you're living in. My freshman dorm, I'm biased, I lived in Glen and I loved it, but we had laundry on every floor. But every other, I believe, has either laundry is 1 laundry room for the whole building, and there's obviously a lot more washers and dryers if it's a whole building, and then some do share, like 4 buildings would share 1 large laundry room. I never had an issue with laundry at all. Whenever I wanted to wash laundry, there's typically no one in there at all, so that's a really awesome thing. As a part of being a student first year who lives on campus, you will have a resident advisor, an RA, who lives on the floor with you. It's usually an upperclassman who is there to help you with anything you might need transitioning into college. My RA was the same major as me, so she helped me with picking out my classes for the next year, and she would always make us cookies during finals or during seasons when she knew that we were really, really stressed. There's an older student to help you out as you transition into college. Any questions about dorm housing, housing contract, roommates, anything along those lines?
Do we get to choose our roommates?
Yes, you can absolutely choose your roommate. There's a few different ways that you could choose your roommate. I know a lot of my friends, I'm an identical twin, so I had a built-in roommate because she also goes to Tech, but a lot of my friends chose to use the Georgia Tech Facebook page. They'll make a Facebook page for the incoming class, and that's how I met a lot of people. My freshman year was connecting through that Facebook page, and people will usually comment hey, are you looking for a roommate? And that sort of thing. That's one way. Georgia Tech also had their own way through the housing portal that you could do it. There's a questionnaire that you fill out with your preferences, I'm a night owl, or I enjoy waking up early, how you like to live in your space, if you like to have friends over, if you want your space to be your own space. And through that you can find other students whose questionnaires are filled out similar to yours, and you share similar responses. And that's one way that you can see students. But you are allowed to just type in a name if you know exactly who you want to room with.
Once you actually get accepted into the school, decide that that's where you're going, is that housing portal easy to open on the website?
It's pretty easy to open, yes. We do have a housing website. I believe it's housing.gatech.edu. But that usually is not done till, I think, mid-July is when you self-select your room. Because students are given the option to self-select what dorm they'd like to live in, and even specifically what room you'd like to live in. And you can, I believe you pair your roommate, you figure out who your roommate is before you self-select your room. I will say my number one tip is that as soon as you know that you want to go to Georgia Tech, sign your housing contract, because that does figure out an order in which students get to register, because it's not first come, first serve, but it's whoever fills out the housing contract first gets first pick, and so on and so forth. So the earlier you sign it, the better chance you have of getting your first choice for housing. So I definitely recommend that. And that's where our mechanical engineering and also material science engineering students have a lot of their classes. It's just a really great space. It's a huge building, so many study spaces. Yeah. So now I'm going to take a second to talk a little bit about our co-op and internship programs here at Georgia Tech. Our most frequently asked question is, what's the difference between a co-op and an internship? So I love to use my identical twin sister as an example for this because she is a co-op and I was an intern. So this past spring I just finished up my internship in regulatory affairs at a company that I loved, but it is just a one semester commitment and you typically don't go back to the company unless hopefully I get an offer after I graduate. But that's a one semester thing and you don't typically return to that company. It's a great way to explore within your career field if you don't know exactly what you want to work, what you're exactly within your major, what you would like to work on after college. It's a great way to explore that. But our co-op is a 3-semester commitment where every other semester you'll be working or taking classes. So for example, my twin sister, she worked in the spring and then she's taking classes right now during the summer. She will work in the fall, take classes again next spring, and then finish her co-op next summer. It's a 3-semester commitment. 100% of our co-ops are paid, and we actually have the largest not-for-credit co-op program in the country. Georgia Tech students, a lot of them are employed at places like Delta, Chick-fil-A, hers is MU Cords, a biomedical engineering company, places like that. They're super awesome, and a lot of students that do participate in the co-op program do get return offers for full-time employment after they graduate, because this company has worked with you for 3 semesters and they know you and your work ethic and would love to work with you in the future. Aside from that, we do have a really, really robust career resource center with a lot of great opportunities for students to either build their resumes or just a lot of help in general. They have they have resume workshops where they can help you tailor your resume to exactly what a company may be looking at, or any sort of information that you have that you want to put on your resume. They help you write it in the most strategic way. They also have mock interview prep sessions that you can sign up for. If you know you have an interview coming up, they'll ask you all sorts of questions that you might be facing in that interview to help you prepare, which is really awesome. They even have a closet that you can borrow business formal or business casual attire from if you don't necessarily have it. They have it so that students can borrow it, so they don't have to spend a lot of money on an outfit that they may only wear once. So they're really, really awesome. Georgia Tech does have career fairs every spring and fall, every semester. They also have a summer one. It was yesterday. The summer one is virtual, but the fall and spring ones are in person. They're typically at our CRC, at the Campus Recreation Center, but it does kind of vary. One story I do love to tell is that back in 2018, I was still in high school, but some of my tour guide friends have told me that there was a hurricane that came through the Atlanta area and that we had to cancel our fall career fair. And it was super sad because students love it and it's a great way to put yourself out there. But so we had to call all of the employers and the recruiters and say, hey, there's bad weather, we don't want y'all to risk traveling, we're going to cancel it, but we're postponing it until next week. And 100% of those employers returned and canceled on other schools, on meetings, on everything, prior commitments, so that they could come back to Georgia Tech. A lot of employers do really, really value Georgia Tech students and would love for them to work at their company. One resource I do really love that's also through the Career Center is something we call Career Buzz. It's like a LinkedIn Glassdoor type thing, but specifically for Georgia Tech students. Employers who are looking specifically for Georgia Tech students will post their job postings to our Career Buzz, and students can apply super easy right there. It's very simple. All you have to do is upload your resume and put in your name and hit submit. It was the easiest thing I've honestly ever done to apply for a job, and you can apply to like 20 jobs in like 30 minutes. It's very simple, and I definitely recommend. That's how I got my internship myself. Aside from our co-ops and our internships, we are a Tier 1 research institute, which means that every tenure-track professor does have to participate in some form of research. And students are welcome to get involved in that as soon as they would like. I know people who have started out their freshman year, a week into the semester, they were emailing professors seeing if they could join their lab. And you absolutely are not limited to your major as far as research. You can explore anything. If you find any lab here at Georgia Tech or at Emory, because a lot of students do also research through Emory, you're welcome to email that professor. They're always looking for help, especially undergrads and grad students, to help them out. You can research either for credit or for pay. Some people do research internships, or I know my major specifically, I can get up to 6 credits for working through an internship. Working through research, and then you can also get paid if you prefer to get paid for your time instead. It's a great way for students to get to practice the skills that they've learned in their lectures and in a real world application. There's a bunch of different tools sections downstairs. There's a metalworking section, a woodworking section. My favorite is Craftland because it has sewing machines and embroidery machines. I'm doing a little project later this summer. But it is a really, really awesome space. It is completely free for students to use the machines down there, but you do have to provide your own materials, which is great because right here in the Invention Studio is a little Home Depot workshop where you can buy Home Depot materials at Home Depot prices right here on campus, which is really convenient. You might have to shop other places for larger or more specific pieces, but it's a great starting point. Georgia Tech has 6 maker spaces, like I mentioned earlier, one for a lot of the different majors. This one is mechanical engineering. There's the Hive, which is electrical and computer engineering. There's the BME design shop, which is for my major for biomedical engineering. There's a mock stock trading floor in our business school, which is really cool to go up there and see what's going on. We have paper and clay, which is a art, paper mache, clay, sort of thing for a lot of our industrial design students. It's also free or not free, it's very low cost for students to go in there, and you can actually make your own pottery if you just want to go in and make pottery. There's one more, I'm blanking on it. I might remember it a little later, but there is 6 in total, and they are all student run. And we have our prototyping instructors who are trained to help students, there are peers who can help you learn how to use the machines, and they're super willing to help you learn how to use them and be able to take advantage of this really, really awesome resource. I wish we could go downstairs, but for safety reasons, we have to stay up here. And I just wanted to point this out. This is one of my favorite things.
So that's the design commons. And she said, as I can see, the Home Depot. Not dropping anything. But we can't go down here. Design commons. That's the Home Depot. Remember, this is the engineering, mechanical, building, so we're just gonna walk by and see what some of the classrooms look like. Let's see on this side. This looks like wood shop to me. Hold on, y'all. My group is leaving me. Okay. And this one, it says thermal and fluid systems. Cool. Let me keep on going. Right on down. Go ahead, I'm coming. Let's go to computer classes.
Building is home to our largest lecture halls here on campus. Maybe I'll move us if it's a little swarming. I think I'm gonna move us further down a little bit because the pretty tree. I don't want anyone to get
Due to
stuck.
the pretty tree.
I got stung by a hornet at Georgia Tech right that time.
Well, you know, my high school graduation, I was like about to give my speech, and a like yellow jacket landed on my graduation gown, and I was like, this is kind of poetic. Okay, which actually we're in a better spot to see one of my favorite things about this building. But as I was saying, this is our Howey Physics building and is home to our largest lecture halls here on campus. Most of our classes are either 250, like 200, 250, or smaller. We want to make sure that students aren't in too large of a classroom because we want to make sure that they have all the opportunities and resources that they need. My favorite thing about this building, though, is that it has a very large telescope on top. And the astronomy club, if you come this way just a little bit, you can see through the tree. That big, like beige add-on with the stairs at the top of the building is actually a telescope. And the astronomy club will open it up when there's lots of cool events going on in the sky, like a lunar eclipse or a meteor shower, a really pretty full moon, and they will take pictures. I think sometimes it is open to students during those as well if they want to come up and take a peek through the telescope as well. But just a fun little thing that I like to note about the physics building. Right now I do want to take a second to talk a little bit about Georgia Tech's class structures. We have a lot of different resources for students, and 3 of those are studios, recitations, and labs. So as a first year student, you're mainly probably going to be taking a lot of like the intro courses, so like your maths, your intro sciences, that sort of thing. So these are things you will be getting to take a part in. So our studios are a smaller section of your big math lecture where you are with a TA and a couple other peers, usually around 20 peers are with you, and you get like a worksheet and you get to work through problems that are based off of the lecture material for that week. And it is a much smaller group than your large lecture, and it's a great way to get to talk with your TA about any problems you might be struggling with, or just get some extra practice, which is really fun. And those are with our math classes. Usually I think all 4 that I took had studios, and that is integral calculus, differential calculus, multivariable calculus, and differential equations. All of those do have studios, and it's a really, really great resource, and you get to be with your TA during that time. We also have yes, it's something that you will register with the class. So when you click on the class during registration, it also asks you what studio section you'd like to join, and there's usually 10 or so different options depending on how big the lecture is itself, based on what studio time works into your schedule best. Because your math classes are typically, it's either 3 days a week or twice a week, and then the studio is another day that week, but you can choose when that studio is, and it's different time than your actual lecture. And you can choose the studio section based on.
Different or just different times?
They're different times. Every studio has the same material, but it's different times for different students, so it can fit in with your other classes. And that's something you would register with at the same time as your full lecture class. We also have recitations, which are a part of our computer science classes. It's another way that you get to work with a TA, do a couple extra practice problems, get help on the homework, that sort of thing if you need extra help there. We also have our labs, which are a part of our science courses, biology, chemistry, and we have physics. It's a GPS, I call it a lab, but it's a group problem solving session. Same sort of thing, you're applying all of the information that you have learned in lecture into, for our labs, it's a more practical, like like hands-on sense. So you'll be in a chemistry lab pipetting and measuring solids and that sort of thing, which I personally really enjoyed. With our biology classes, they do different things. Obviously, based on biology, there's a cockroach experiment that I've heard lots and lots about.
You know what it is?
I didn't take biology, so I am not sure, but I do know that my friend Naya liked it. It was very interesting from what I've heard. And then you also have your physics GPS group problem solving session. Same thing, you're applying your knowledge that you learned in lecture onto problems that are like similar to what your test problems and your homework problems would be looking like. Aside from those, which are all built into your course schedule, because those are all things that you have to register for through your class as just a part of the course requirement. We also have a lot of other resources for students if they still need additional help or are looking for more one-on-one opportunities. So all TAs and professors, TAs are teaching assistants, they all have their own office hours, TA and professor office hours, usually at different times, where you can go to the professor or to your teaching assistant and have one-on-one conversations about very specific questions that maybe weren't covered in the studio or weren't covered in class that you want a little bit more help on. I think they're very, very underutilized. I definitely recommend going to office hours because a lot of the times you might be the only person there. Because I think it's very underutilized and that students don't capitalize on it enough because you get that one-on-one time with your professor right then. And they're very helpful during that time because you've shown the motivation to come and get additional help. Aside from that, we do have our plus session, which is a peer-led undergraduate study session. For a lot of those intro courses, it is a 1 hour additional thing during the week. It's completely optional. Students don't have to participate in it, but it is another way to get a little extra help. It's led by a student who has previously excelled in the class, and they will have, again, practice problems from that week. During exam weeks, it's usually a double plus session, which means it's 2 hours instead of 1 hour, and you typically will get a practice test to work through during that plus session. So that's a little bit about class structure, sizes, any questions about registration, anything really about classes at all, I'd be happy to answer.
And for most of the registration stuff, that becomes available after, the housing, after you agree to attend the school?
That's what I was speaking a little bit about earlier with the FACET. For our first year students, they will register at our FACET, which is the familiarization and adaptation of students to the environs at Tech, which is basically just like getting you acclimated to the environment here at Tech. You get to sit down one-on-one with a FACET leader who is a student in your major who will help you register for your classes as a first year. You also have, of course, access to your advisors during that time, and they are there for questions. It won't exactly be one-on-one because there's only so many advisors and lots of students, but you typically will sign up for your FACET section based on your major. So a little bit about CS, or computer science. All Georgia Tech students are required to take one CS class while they are here. And that does mean that every student graduates with a Bachelor of Science instead of a Bachelor of Arts, no matter what their major is. Since they took a CS class, they graduate with a BS. Within our computer science major, there are a bunch of different concentrations, I believe 8. And it just depends on what your student, if they want to do computer science, would like to focus on. People is one of them. I think machines is one of them. I'm not computer science, so I'm not super well versed on all of the different options, but there's a lot of information online if you would like to look into that further. Aside from that, a lot of our CS upper level classes do happen in these buildings. So that's just a little bit about CS here at Georgia Tech. Now I want to talk a little bit about where we are. Okay, so if you were to put on your binoculars and look way, way, way that way, you would see Midtown Atlanta. Georgia Tech is right in the middle of Midtown, and there's a lot of great restaurants, shopping, you name it, just a little bit that way. If you zoom in just a little bit, we have what I like to call the Georgia Tech and Midtown crossover, and that is our Tech Square. It is a lovely space that has a bunch of different restaurants. Our Scheller College of Business is located in Tech Square. The Barnes & Noble Georgia Tech bookstore is located there. And it also has an attached Apple store, which is great for students if they're ever needing any sort of computer help or to buy a new charger or something like that. There's also a bunch of companies like NCR, if you've heard of them, which a lot of students do work at for either an internship or a co-op, is also right in Tech Square, which is really awesome. If you come a little bit closer in, you reach campus. And on our East Campus, which is where we kind of are, we're a little bit closer in, but East Campus is that way, we have all of our athletics. We have the volleyball, the track, the tennis, basketball, baseball, all of that is just past these two buildings. With the baseball stadium being the closest. It's just on the other side of this building and down a set of stairs, which is really awesome. And then we also have our football stadium on East Campus, but it is directly that way, so a little bit separated from the other sports complexes, which is really awesome. Students get in free to all Georgia Tech games with the exception of football. Football is about $65 and you get a season ticket for all of the home games, which is cheaper than other schools, as I've been told, and really awesome. But I do love that we get free entry into all of the other sports just with your bus card. And that's as part of like your student fees and stuff like that. Aside from that, Georgia Tech students do have really, really awesome school spirit and student pride. We love Georgia Tech and we love to go to the games and support our teams. Also on East Campus, we do have all of our sororities and fraternities through Greek life. And with that, about 25% of students are involved in Greek life. So it's there if you'd like to get involved with it, but also not everyone is involved in Greek life. So if that's something that you don't choose to do, there's lots of other ways to get involved. Georgia Tech has, I believe, close to 500 different registered student organizations, all of which you can browse on our Engage website, which is engage.gatech.edu. It has all of those listed, like there is a medical robotics club, the astronomy club, as I mentioned earlier. There's even a lettuce eating club where they eat lettuce. It's really up to you on what you get involved in. There's so much to do here at Georgia Tech, and you can really tailor your experience based on your interests. And the Engage website is a great way to browse all of those different things. You can also start your own club if you'd like, so that's absolutely an option. If you don't find anything to your liking, start something new. That's a little bit about CS and Midtown Atlanta, everything on East Campus pretty much. Any questions about any of that? Awesome. We're gonna head to our next stop, which is in the AC, which is awesome. I'm gonna talk a little bit about safety and transportation here at Georgia Tech. Of course, we do live in the middle of a big city, but Georgia Tech honestly feels like a bubble. I don't know if y'all have felt that way as we walked around campus, but sometimes I even forget that we're in the city. But as a part of our safety, we do have our own police department, the Georgia Tech Police Department, that is only patrolling campus because it is specifically a different entity from the Atlanta Police Department, so they're only focused on Georgia Tech's campus and making sure we're safe here. There's at least 10 cars on patrol at any given time, as well as they also have public safety officers who are also on patrol. They're on bikes. They have Segway. They have Segways. I almost forgot the word. But they're all around campus and they are here to make sure that we are super safe. They have a really funny Instagram, actually, if you would want to check that out, surprisingly. But they love to be engaged with students and get to know us. They have outreach events like Coffee with a Cop or Cocoa with the Popo, because they want students to know who's protecting them at all times. If at any point you need to call the Georgia Tech Police Department, they have their own specific phone number and it's on the back of every buzz card, so it's on the back of your student identification. If you ever need the number, I definitely recommend putting it in like your favorites on your phone whenever you, if you become a student, that sort of thing. But if you were to not have your phone and need to call them, we have this lovely system. This is the blue light system, and if you do a 360-degree spin, you will see another blue light. There's one at the end of this walkway, there's one right up by the student center, and this big tree just over this way. It is, you just press the red button and it calls the Georgia Tech Police Department right there. Their response time is super fast. It's never more than 90 seconds, but it is usually right around 50 seconds, and there will be an officer standing right next to you. So that's a really great resource in case you were ever to need help of any kind. Aside from that, we also do have our Georgia Tech Emergency Network System, which is just a way to keep students in the know about what's going on. There's a lot of weather alerts that come out through that, and as a student you get to choose how you get notified. I have phone call and text message selected currently, and it's also, parents can do it as well. You just have to enter in your information. I know my mom has it on her phone, even though she's 2.5 hours away, but she does like to stay in the know about what's happening on campus, and if there's any sort of safety concern or if there's a weather concern, that is sent out through the Georgia Tech Emergency Network System. I just heard a squirrel. Yes, but aside from that, we also have a lot of different ways to be transported around campus. And with that, oh, okay, there's couple buses right behind me over here. Georgia Tech has a lovely bus system. We call them the Stinger buses. And there are 7 or 8 different routes that they run throughout the day, our most common being our blue and our red, which run clockwise and counterclockwise around campus. The stops are never more than like a 5-minute walk apart. They're very close together, and the buses run very frequently. One of my favorite routes that we have is the grocery shuttle route, where it actually takes students on the weekends from Tech's campus to Atlantic Station, which is a shopping center nearby. It has a Publix, a Target, a Forever 21, lots of great shopping. There's a bowling alley, a movie theater. So it's more than just a grocery shuttle. If you take it on the weekends, you can go and explore Atlantic Station, which is a really great space near to campus. So there's definitely that, which is a really great resource. We also have the Midnight Rambler. So our buses run from about 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. And after that, the regular routes do shut down, but our Midnight Rambler does take into effect, and that is a later bus system that runs from when the daytime buses close down until 2 or 3 a.m. And it's just a way to make sure students are getting from one destination to their apartment or to their dorm safely at night, because that can be a concern. Apart from that, we also do have our on-campus Uber, which is what we call the Stingerette. It's completely free to students, and it'll take you specifically from point A to point B. There's an app that you can go in and you can select your ride, and you can do it that way. You don't have to tip. It's completely free. It's built into your student fees. And same sort of thing that comes on around 8 or 9 p.m. and goes until 2 or 3 a.m. just to make sure that students are safe and can get back to their dorms or wherever they need to be safely. Aside from that, we do also have the Georgia Tech Police Department does offer rides during final season. They will sit right outside the libraries on either side, and they will drive students back to their dorms or their apartment if needed, just because they want to make sure the students are safe, which I think is a really awesome thing that they do during finals. And they actually, sometimes if they see you out on the street and you need a ride, they will absolutely take you like home. Because one time I was coming back from an event and it was pouring down rain, and I was wearing like a fancy dress, and a public safety officer pulled over and was like, "Hey, would you like a ride back to your apartment?" And I was like, "Absolutely, I would like a ride back to my apartment." So our public safety officers in our police department, they are super awesome and willing to help at any time. If a bus is not your preferred mode of transportation, every single building does have bike racks outside of them. Students can lock up their bikes, or another frequently used item by students is the scooters, like you see here. There are like 4 rent scooters that are just kind of laid out wherever, like this one right here, the Lime scooter, that you can just, it's like you pay right there. I know some students do choose to buy their own scooter. It's like a $200 or $300 investment. You can use it for your whole time here. It's like a personal scooter. Aside from that, students use motorized skateboards. I've seen a unicycle before. It's really up to you how you get around campus. But if you're like me, I love to walk. And it's a very walkable campus. From corner to corner, it's only about a 15-minute walk. So that's really nice, especially since we're in the middle of the city. It's great that it's not a super long walk, because it could be. Aside from that, we also do have, all students are allowed to have cars on campus at any time. First year, second year, third year, you name it, you can have your car at any time. That's not something that we restrict. It is about $795 for an annual parking pass, which runs you the entire calendar year. So for example, this year's parking passes pick up on August 14th, 2023, and you get that same parking spot until August 13th of 2024. So it is an entire calendar year, which is great for students like me who are on campus during the summer. There is a bunch of different options as far as parking passes go. You can do a semester parking pass, for example, if you know that you want to study abroad in the spring semester, then you can buy one that's specifically for the fall. Lots of different options there. As well as that, you can park pretty much anywhere on campus. When you buy that parking pass, you will select a lot. There are a few different parking decks. I believe I can name at least 5 parking decks here on campus, as well as other smaller lots that are uncovered, and also street parking. For the dorms, there is one parking garage that's right near the West Campus dorms, as well as street parking over there, and a few a parking lot over there. And for our East Campus dorms, there is a parking garage that's not quite as close, but there's lots of street parking in that area if you were to choose to live on either East or West. That's all for transportation and safety. 51% of Georgia Tech students actually do choose to study abroad during their time here. Something that I think is super unique about Georgia Tech is that it has a lot of different programs for all and just specifically, I know a lot of other schools focus on the humanities majors and things like that, but Georgia Tech has a lot of study abroad programs for their STEM majors as well. So through that, there's a couple different ways you can study abroad. Georgia Tech does have two actual Georgia Tech campuses that are located in other countries, and that is our Georgia Tech Lorraine and our Georgia Tech Shenzhen. Those are in Metz, France, and Shenzhen, China. And you can actually study at a Georgia Tech building with Georgia Tech professors just in a foreign country, which is really fun. We also have a lot of other study abroad programs that are either major specific or just up to you on what you decide that you'd like to do. We're competing with that other group a little bit. I'm sorry, I'll speak a little louder. But through that, there, for example, is the Oxford program that goes to Oxford in England, and they stay there. They also move around a little bit. It is a kind of dual program. For the first 6 weeks of the summer, you are staying at different places throughout Europe, and then for your last 6 weeks in summer, you're stationary at Oxford University. With those sort of programs, you are with Georgia Tech professors, but you're staying at another university using their facilities, that sort of thing. So it's not necessarily a Georgia Tech building. I know my major specifically has one. It's the Galway program. It's in Galway, Ireland, and they stay at the University of Galway, I believe, is the university that they're through. There's a lot of different ones. Architecture has one. It is a 6-week program, and it is in Italy and Greece, if that's something that interests you. CS has one in Spain, I believe Barcelona, if that's something you're interested in. I'm trying to think about the other ones. Pretty much both of the Georgia Tech campuses in other countries, those are very variable. Any major goes to those. It's just something to check out. But aside from that, from the major specific ones, you can even choose to do an exchange program, which is another way you can study abroad, where you would specifically, you can find another university anywhere in the world, and as long as those credits transfer back to Georgia Tech, you can go attend that other university for a semester. I have 2 friends that did that, Luke and Marina. They just found a university in Madrid that transferred credits back to Georgia Tech, and they lived in Spain for 6 months, and they really loved it. So that's just a couple different ways you can study abroad at Georgia Tech. I mentioned that because our study abroad office is right behind me in those big buildings. Also in this area, this is our psych building. I know we had a couple of aerospace engineer interests, which is just, it's around this corner, but it's just on the other side of this building is our aerospace engineering building. It is the only engineering building on East Campus, and it's because there's giant wind tunnels in the bottom of the building. The Aero Makerspace, guys, that was the one I forgot. It's a really great place. But there are wind tunnels in the bottom, the ground floor of the building, and those are super difficult to move. So that's why it is not on West Campus with all of the other engineering buildings. And the building right behind us is the Chapin building. It is the Center for Diversity and Inclusion, and also the Center for Minority Students as well. Great place to get information. Behind me is our tech tower, and that's just a lot of administrative offices, as well as our president's office is right behind me in this building. So that's a little bit about the area. You're probably wondering where we're standing. Well, this is our historic part of campus, and it is the oldest part of campus. And this is Harrison Square. So if you take a peek right behind you, there is a little concrete barrier that kind of runs along this grassy knoll, and it represents a building that used to stand here. So in 1888, Georgia Tech opened its doors to 84 mechanical engineers, and they would spend their days in lecture inside of Tech Tower, which, if you can believe it, was it was the tallest building in Atlanta at one point. We've grown a lot since then. There's a lot of taller buildings. But students would spend their time in lecture, and then a whistle would blow, which is a whistle that's actually right behind us on the building over here. It's the same whistle that still releases us from class and also blows every time we score a touchdown at a home football game. But the students would then transfer over into Harrison Warehouse. So this little concrete path represents where Harrison Warehouse used to stand. Harrison Warehouse did burn down, and then they built it back up, and then it burnt down. And then they built it back up, and it burned down. So they stopped rebuilding it, and it led them to create this square in dedication to that. And this concrete path now represents the old footprint of the building. And that steam engine down there does represent the kind of hands-on application of their studies that students would get to create and work through in the Harrison Warehouse. Yeah. you know, maybe they put in a few security measures in that one to make sure it doesn't burn down.
That's how mechanical engineers learn to install a fire system. That's
Right.
You learn more from your mistakes than you do from your successes.
When Georgia Tech was opened, it was actually called the Georgia School of Technology, which if you look at the psychology building behind you, in those little diamonds, it has the monogram GTS, and it is a lasting reminder of our Georgia School of Technology. In 1948, Georgia Tech changed its name to the Georgia Institute of Technology to show that they wanted to have a more research focus going forward from that time. So it's now the Georgia Institute of Technology to this day. And it's a really, really lovely place. Now, can anyone name our two mascots?
Yellow jacket.
Mm-hmm. Can anyone name the other one?
In the car.
Yeah, the Ramblin' Wreck.
Yeah.
So Georgia Tech is super unique in the fact that it has two mascots. To close out this tour, I would like to give y'all my why Georgia Tech, why I came here, why I stayed, that sort of thing. My dad came here, as y'all might have heard earlier. He graduated class of 2000, I think. And I grew up coming to campus, going to football games, basketball games, baseball games, big sports guy. So of course I was born and raised a Georgia Tech fan. But so me and my siblings would come here all the time. I knew that I loved campus and I loved the school, like student pride and how beautiful campus was. So like all of y'all, I came on a tour to check out the academics and learn about all the different programs and opportunities that Georgia Tech had for its students. And that was really crucial in my decision making. I knew that I liked the school as far as like the environment, but I wanted to make sure that it had all the opportunities that I thought I would need to grow and prosper, both in my personal life, but also through career development. And I think that Georgia Tech absolutely does all of those things, and I have more than enjoyed my 4 years here at Georgia Tech, so much so that I'm doing 4.5. I'm staying a little extra to finish my degree and enjoy another fall semester here on campus. I love it so much so that I come out here every Tuesday and Thursday and give these tours.
Hope you guys enjoyed this informational tour. Thanks for watching. Smooches.